Good morning, everyone. So this morning I wanted to do an archetypal, well, it's not really a really reading, it's more a look into one of the archetypes that may be showing up for people at the moment. And it was interesting because I took out 3 cards, and the 3 cards included the orphan child and the liberator and the rebel. Okay, so we're going to focus firstly on the orphan child, okay, because it's the orphan child that would stimulate and unhealthy, particularly orphan child, that often stimulates some of these 2 other archetypes, the liberator and rebel, into showing up in its negative way. So this session is I'm going to explore signs of the unhealthy orphan child in your spiritual business. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to just explain about what is the orphan archetype. So there's many layers to archetypes, and the easiest way to explain it in some ways, even though this is not an exact specification, is that it's like a persona. We all have different personas for different things. And we all obviously have the inner child within us, right? We have the magical child, the eternal child. We have the innocent child. We have the orphan child. We have the elements of situations in our life that we've not healed from, particularly as a child, where we felt orphaned, where we felt neglected, abused, traumatized, or left out. And what I mean is, when I'm talking about the neglect and abuse and all that, it's in a situation where you felt abandoned. Okay, it's the abandonment aspect and the neglect aspect, where in some capacity you were left out, or you felt left out. Because what we've always got to remember as personas and things that happen sometimes are not always real, right? I'm not saying that they're not real, but sometimes it's a perception of a situation that we believe we were abandoned, how we see the situation. It's just the same in adulthood. It's the way that we see the world, how we view the world, that shapes us. And as a child, we may see something as unfair. We may think that someone abandoned us and left us, may deliberately or whatever, but it might not be the full picture. Now, every single one of us, no matter how healthy or unhealthy our childhood was, we all have the orphan aspect, child aspect within it, and the orphan trauma. And it's any situation where you felt left out, and as I said, maybe neglected or whatever. And sometimes it comes with feeling like the black sheep of the family, or not being part of a group, maybe being excluded, not feeling as if you belonged, okay, for some reason. Many of you, I know, as light workers or star seeds, can struggle with that feeling of not feeling as if you belong, being very different, right? Now, out of the orphan archetype can come some tremendous strengths if the person, if the light aspects comes through in the orphan child, and that is the healthy orphan archetype comes through and learns how to be independent and self-reliant and not have to depend on others. The healthy aspect has a sense of freedom. They can go along the journey alone. The negative side of that is that they can go for so much freedom and independence that it's like, if you think about it, it's like the lone child who can become maybe very selfish because they're so on their own path, only see things their way, or become in a way that they want to do everything their own way, and do it alone, but they don't ask for help, right? So they don't always get the right support. They can struggle to ask for support, but also sometimes they don't learn as much, because the orphan child who does things alone may be, independent and may have to do some things and learn some things that the rest of us don't. Sometimes they don't because they're doing everything alone. They maybe don't have high levels of awareness, self-awareness. I'm not saying everybody does, but that can sometimes happen. These are just things because they go alone. And again, sometimes the good examples of that is someone who is a lone child, who doesn't maybe learn to integrate with the rest of the family and things like that, and just does things their same way. So it's interesting why the two other cards that come up were the rebel or the liberator. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, the rebel. So if the orphan child has a lot of wounds, and it can be other types of wounds that maybe are related to other aspects, where they feel maybe more the victim child, where the victim energy is coming on, and there's other things. If the shadow aspect of the orphan, where they seek for freedom and independence and going out alone, narrows the view, right? There can be elements of the rebel archetype can show up. So the rebel archetype, where in the negative aspect, the rebel, it's like the rebel without a cause, the rebel without a clue. They just want to rebel against everything and do everything differently or their way. And even though the rebel archetype can be an amazing archetype to create change and to move things in different directions when things are not working, the rebel archetype can also cause chaos, can cause destruction, because it's like they just want to do things their way. So they often lack boundaries, and they don't always respect or value other people's boundaries, and sometimes even opinions, because they push through. Now, the rebel archetype and its positive elements at the moment is a really, really positive energy to break through a lot of the old systems that is happening. But again, if the energy is coming from destruction or chaos or anger or triggers, so we all can get triggered when we do certain actions from a place of our own anger, our own triggers, often it's not a good cause. If we are taking action as the rebel out of social change and we want to do greater good now, maybe slightly emotional, maybe angry, but you're doing it for the best intent, of course, we can create positive change. We can help break down old systems and rebel against things that are not working. Okay, so we can rebel against the tyranny. But in a business, it's good to have a little bit of the rebel in you, and what I mean is, in the mindset, sometimes the rebel mindset can help us have a rebellious look at even in the way that we do things ourselves. So if we can bring that in and see, right, okay, maybe I need to shake things up. Maybe I need to do things a bit differently. So focused on the way it used to be doing things or how it should be. It can be. But if you don't have a system, if there is no natural, how could you say? So the easiest way to explain this is, what we all sometimes forget is that nature and elements in life all have a mathematical aspect to it. There's a balance there, right? And there's lots of things that tend to work, and there's some things that don't. And it's knowing the difference, and it's knowing when to shake things up, and knowing when just to be rebellious because for some reason you're triggered, or just doing things differently to be visible, or doing things because you want to do it that way. And that's so important for us always to recognize. Sometimes with our own triggers, we can do it in life. We can just say, I'm going to do this my way, right? But you're not always doing it from the highest perspective. You're doing it because you're triggered. You're doing it because something feels uncomfortable, maybe because you feel left out, maybe there's wounding, and maybe you perceive something a certain way. So you're being motivated by something that is constricting, and it's anger and it's frustration, right? So in our business, when we're frustrated at something, something is not going our own way, sometimes we can get, very rebellious in the negative. When it's, you want to bring the energy of the light aspect. If you haven't healed the orphan child, the aspect where they maybe feel as if they were the black sheep of the family, or where they have not healed that aspect where they felt they didn't belong and they had to maybe do it alone, or rebel to be visible, rebel to survive, you can be bringing in the wrong rebel energy. Now, the rebel archetype is not one I attract a lot, but I have to be honest, when someone comes in to work with me and there's a strong rebel energy, the way that I often, particularly in the shadow element, you feel it's very chaotic. And even if they're quite a gentle, calm person, but when their energy, the rebel, comes through, it can be very hostile. It can be, because it can be very loaded, right? Now, that passion behind the rebel energy can be really utilized for really powerful change. So when someone has that strong energy, they can be a great advocate, and also they can be a great liberator. Help free people, society, even themselves from, again, it's liberation from certain things, but it's about focusing that energy on the right things and being self-aware. One of the things that sometimes the orphan child can struggle with is self-awareness. If they don't develop good self-awareness, and particularly that can be, again, the lone child who spends so much time alone, and sometimes when they're really introverted, they don't see themselves how other people see them, in the way that it's like when they play their games or when they show up in life, they may not see the bigger picture because they're coming from that one angle, right? And they maybe feel like the black sheep, they may feel as if they're excluded, and when you feel as if you're something, even if you're not, you can act as if you're excluded. So sometimes that shows up actually in the complete opposite way in a business. So some of the negative aspects that can show up, that the person wants to be seen at any cost, and they sometimes do all sorts of self-sabotaging things to be seen, and they can do all sorts of things that maybe show up really provocative, and it's about trying to, or show up very rebellious and aggressive to be seen. The more healthy aspect of the orphan who has moved past all that, or has more balance in them, is motivated by helping. They want other people to belong as part of the family because they know what it feels like not to belong. So they're all about exclusion, inclusion. They're all exclusion, sorry, inclusion. They're all about bringing people together. So that's really, really important to them. So their philosophy and the way they look at life and the way that they look at their work is often very exclusive. So often the orphan brand, or the orphan person that's got a strong orphan archetype, does well when it's things like support circles and memberships. They may struggle in situations where there is different group sectors with different demographics or people at different level. be just the way that they do things. Now, I always have to highlight to people, every single person comes with different gifts, different skills, different life experience, and you're here for all. And in many ways, we all have certain things that we're all here for, right, that are all similar. But we also have unique things. We're all a unique part of the jigsaw. So, for example, the orphan archetype may have a completely different role than someone that is, for example, the alchemist, or someone that is, I'm trying to think, which are more at the extreme, the romantic, the lover. They can be similar in some ways. The sage, there's so many different archetypes. We all have a purpose, right? But if you are finding that you're very frustrated in your business, there's a lot of anger, and you feel as if you don't belong, or you feel as if you are not being listened to, or that. So sometimes I attract people that have got orphan archetypes in my business. And I'll give you an example. So sometimes in a situation where you're actually teaching something and you're trying to teach them, like if I'm teaching sales funnels or certain things that are practical, and you're trying to move people through and help them, they sometimes it's the energy of more, they want it to be like more like a community space, like a circle, because they're craving this feeling of belonging, that they just want it to be like a support group, right? So that's why orphan archetypes, particularly when they've sorted their stuff out and list their stuff out, are really good at support groups. And it's because it's something they've really craved in their life, and it's something that they felt they needed because they lacked, right? Every business model has to be different, and we all have to look at what our strengths are and what our audience needs are. Because some types of styles of business and styles of teaching, for example, or mentoring or support, doesn't accommodate that for whatever reason. It depends on what you're offering. So it's always understanding that when the orphan archetype is showing up, is it showing up in the healthy way or the unhealthy way? And the signs of unhealthy are you always feel as if you're excluded, right? You always feel you need to prove yourself. You maybe feel as if you're the black sheep. And then if it's getting into the rebel or the liberator in an unhealthy way, you want just to break the news. You want to do anything just to create change, right? And sometimes you can try and be a rebel to belong. Actually, it doesn't work. So sometimes I see people showing up in their media in a very rebellious, aggressive way. And people might think, oh my goodness, that's one way to actually now. Of course, you've got to show up authentically, exactly who you are. But sometimes people push it. And people always think, well, some people, the automatic thing that you think is that they're trying to push people away. But in some ways, they're still trying to be loved. They're trying to be accepted. They're trying to have people accept them at what they may deem as their worst part or their strongest aspect, right? So it's getting that balance right. It's showing up authentically, but recognizing when you're showing up to prove a point or to just try and get that attention, but it's not coming from the positive aspect. Now, just because we brought the liberator, I'm going to just talk about the liberator, right? So the liberator archetype, I'm just going to show you that. The liberator archetype is about freeing yourself, right? From outmoded, so it's very like the rebel beliefs, and releasing negative thought patterns, right? So the liberator is if you can release your negative thought patterns from your childhood, right? And from that not sense of belonging or not being accepted, it can be very free, right? Now, the negative part is that you impose your own tyrannical beliefs, but you're imposing it, but on the people that you're supposed to be helping, right? Or the opposite, you're ignoring certain rules that are there for to respect other people, boundaries for other people. And that can come in all sorts of forms. And sometimes the rebellious and the liberator goes so far that they sometimes expect everything to be free. That's another example where they expect everything in life to be free, and it should be this way. So they don't always value what else is going out. On the positive side of the liberator and the rebel is this ability to create amazing, powerful change, right? Particularly when we look at what's going on energetically at the moment, there's so much tyranny going on and so many levels of society. And this trying to suppress and constrain people's energy and push it down at different levels. In many ways, the liberator and the rebel energy pulls that up. And it's not always a bad thing in being triggered in some way, because when we're triggered in certain ways, we also understand when things are not right, within ourselves, what's going on within ourselves, of course, and it's bringing us back at Wyndham, but it also reminds us of social injustice, right? And the Orphan is very against social injustice. They're all about community and equality, right? So there is, positive traits and negative traits. It's always recognizing in your business about maximizing the power out of the things that are showing up, and obviously minimizing the areas of where maybe your vulnerabilities are or where things are showing up, and where we may be acting out certain dynamics which are actually disempowering us, or it keeps us in the loop. Okay, so I hope that has given you a little bit of insight into the Orphan archetype and how it can show up in different aspects of your life, and how, just by awareness, how much increased awareness in your business about the archetypes that are showing up, that can help us move away from sabotaging patterns and into more healthy patterns. Okay, have a lovely weekend, everyone. Take care and bye for now.